Hello and welcome to part 2 of my Tinker jungling guide. In this video I will show you how to farm the Radiant jungle efficiently with the Tinker. Tinker jungling is also very fast on Radiant, like soloing travels in less than 8 minutes. It's also somewhat easier on Radiant depending on how you look at it, but it's also kinda messy, but I will talk a lot more about all this later in this video. And also later I will show you exactly which trees I cut down in the tree cutting phase. But for now let's get into it. You want to start off by stacking 2 camps at the same time, just like I do with Necrophos. Start running towards the hard camp around 37. Then hit the hard camp so the projectile is hitting the hard camp at exactly 43. Then drag the creeps all the way through the little pathway you've created here, and then click on the mouse on this spot exactly, because when you stand right here you'll be safe. If you accidentally click a little too far to the left, then your hero will tend to get to the low ground by running all the way around, at which point you will tank all the creeps, and that's not what you want. So stand exactly on this spot. Then when the creeps run back you can pull them again from all the way up here, so time it so your projectile hit the hard camp at 53, and then hit the medium camp at 55, and then just for style pun try to hit the other hard camp as fast as you can, like at 57, 58, because if you're really lucky then this hard camp will also stack, which means you got a triple stack to start things off. And then immediately after place a march while standing right here, as close to the edge as possible, and do it in this direction so it's hitting both medium camp and the hard camp from the side, so this way it's gonna do a lot more damage. Now your objective is to clear the hard camp completely and at the same time damage the medium camp stack as much as you can. You will have another march before the 2-minute mark, so damage the hard camp creeps evenly and try to set it up so you get maximum value from your next march. And then at 150 stop hitting the creeps in the medium camp because you want to stack the camp at 155. And from here it's just rinse repeat. You want to take out the hard camp every minute, and while doing that damage the medium camp as much as possible, because your aim is to clear these 2 camps completely so you could go stack the hard camp to the right. So this way you will get the maximum value from all 3 camps. It's only the trolls that can cancel your clarity potion, so when you're sure you don't get trolls in the hard camp at the 2-minute mark, then you can use your clarity potion. So here you can see I barely make it in time to kill both camps and stack the hard camp at 53. When you pull the creeps in this direction you can get away with pulling at 55, 56 depending on how big the stack is, but preferably you want to pull the camp so the projectile is hitting the creeps at 53. This time I got some more difficult creeps, the trolls and the golems. So this time my plan is to clear the trolls completely and stack either the golems or the hard camp to the right, but things don't always go as planned. This time I was a bit too greedy and I wanted to damage the golems because I figured that the next march would kill off the troll camp completely. In theory it was a good idea, but I forgot to take into account the fact that the trolls spawn the skeleton warriors. On top of that I made a judgment call to stack the hard camp to the right instead of the medium camp. At this point both options are good, but I was really counting on the fact that the hard camp to the left would spawn new creeps, which it did not do because of these dumb little skeleton warriors. So here I'm left in a situation where I have no hard camp and only half a medium camp. So I lose a lot of momentum right here simply because I have no creeps to kill. So all I can do is just wait and then stack the hard camp to the right at 53, at which point I will get 2 new camps to work with over here. At the 4 to 5 minute mark these trees will begin to respawn, so you'll just have to cut down the same trees again as best you can without losing too much farming time. Remember, when you want to cut down the trees on the low ground you need to click with your mouse close to the elevation, and then when you are standing there, then you can cut down the trees. Otherwise your hero is just gonna try to walk all the way around, and that's not what you want. All of this just takes some getting used to. Despite of the trees respawning on me, I do manage to clear both camps because I'm setting up the camps in such a way so everything will die when I throw down this next march here. And then I can stack this hard camp again. And notice how I'm always cutting down a tree while I'm stacking this camp. Cutting down as many trees as you can over here is really important because it allows you to pull in this direction, and this way you can get a lot more stacks off safely. And look at this! More trolls and golems! This time I chose to just screw the golems and just focus on killing the trolls, which die really easily to a march of the machines, because I know already that I'm going to clear the hard camp stack here at the 7-minute mark, so this time I'm just not gonna bother with the freaking golems. So now is when the fun begins. I'm already level 6 at 7 minutes, which is fine, but now my farm is gonna go through the roof as I'm about to kill the hard camp stack as well as the room camp and the easy camp. So pull the hard camp stack and place your march right here. So as you can see I'm also hitting the easy camp. Then walk up and drag the room camp so you're sure they will also take the damage from the march. Then rearm at a safe spot where you know you're not tanking too much damage. And then do the same thing again, and remember you want your bottle to be full at this point, because with some bottle charges you can march, rearm, march, rearm, march, which will clear everything. And there you have it, Boots of Travels on top of bottle and level 8 is also possible to do in less than 8 minutes here on the Radiant side. And this is even a replay where I got double golems, double trolls, and I screwed up big time with the skeleton warriors, so I lost at least 1 hard camp's worth of gold and experience right there. So maybe with a perfect run you can get your travels at around 7 minutes? I don't know, but if you borrow a bottle from a teammate just like you saw in part 1, then it will obviously be a lot faster. And even so, this is still like the fastest in the world kind of stuff, so if you beat my time right here, which is definitely possible, then you actually hold the world record for the fastest travels on a jungle tinker, if there is such a record. But anyway, I've also chosen to show you this other replay you're watching right now, where I go for the soul ring instead of the bottle crow, because I've been giving it a lot of thought about whether to go for the soul ring or the bottle. I've done a lot more playtesting. It feels like sometimes soul ring is better, sometimes bottle crow is better. Pretty much what it comes down to is if you got a mid lane who needs to bottle crow constantly. Because if your mid lane needs to bottle crow to win his lane, then obviously you should go for soul ring. So like if you're playing pop with only strangers, then just get the soul ring, because then you don't have to get into this argument with your mid lane about who needs to use the courier. But if your mate is middle, if you're playing with your team, or if you got a hero like Invoker or Viper mid, then for the love of God do the bottle crow. It really is better for you. You can get your travels faster because bottle is cheaper than soul ring and you don't need to buy tangos. It's also safer because you can keep up your HP with the healing from the bottle, and you have some bottle charges in case you get ganked. Because if you go for soul ring, you cannot tank the creeps at all, because then your HP is just gonna be too low and you'll be too easy to kill. Here on the Radiant side it is pretty easy not to tank the creeps. The only thing you need to think about is to not tank the trolls more than you have to. Just right click the trolls from a distance while you're dragging the creeps back and forth and let the march do most of the work. On the dire side, however, you might tank the creeps a lot more than you'd like to. So if you want some help on how not to tank the creeps on the dire side, you can check out my Tinker Speedrun, where I will explain to you in detail exactly what I do to avoid tanking the creeps. If you got problems with tanking the creeps too much, you can just buy a bunch of tangos to keep your HP up, but you kinda don't wanna do that, right? Because it will delay your boots of travel timing. So personally, I would do it with the bottle crow, depending on my mid lane of course. But anyway, back to the replay. If I had played this part a bit better, I could have cleared both camps in time to stack the hard camp to the right. But I'm just a little bit too slow, and that pretty much cost me an entire camp because I did not make it in time to stack. In terms of difficulty, I've previously stated that the Tinker jungling on the dire side should be a 7. But I've since learned that the creeps are a little more aggressive in Reborn, so you kinda need to learn how not to tank the creeps all the time, so it does take a little bit of getting used to. So I'm willing to change the difficulty on the dire side from a 7 to an 8. On the Radiant side I've chosen to give it a 7. I think it is easier to do on the Radiant side, maybe 7 is even a bit overkill. I don't think this is that difficult to do here on the Radiant side, to be honest. In fact, in Dota Reborn it's gotten easier to stack the medium camp here on the Radiant side, which is really nice compared to how it was before. But I know some of you guys will be frustrated by the trees respawning and you'll lose control of your hero because Tinker wants to run all the way around instead of just hitting the creeps like he's supposed to. So I'm giving this a 7 in difficulty, and then I hope maybe you'll get pleasantly surprised when you try it out on Radiant and find that it's really not that difficult to do. Here at the 7 minute mark I should have cleared the big hardcam stack, but I didn't. I don't know why, I guess I just forgot to look at the timer. I have my level 6, I'm almost level 7 actually, so I should have definitely just cleared the hardcam stack instead of fighting these wild wings. So now is when I realize, oh wait, it's 7 minutes, I can just clear the stacks and get my travels. And then I put a 4th level into March to compensate for my mistake, which you generally don't wanna do. I didn't stack anything at all here at the 8 minute mark, and also I completely forgot to sell my Quelling Blade, so I made a bunch of small mistakes here. So I get my travels at 8:14, but that would definitely also have been in less than 8 minutes if I hadn't messed up this bad. So I'm like, alright, I messed up, I might as well try and see how fast I can get the bottle on top of this. So here you can see just how low you can drop if you're not careful about tanking the creeps. If this had been a real game, I would have been such an easy kill. But this is Soul Ring for you. You will drop pretty low when you're clearing the stacks, so it is a bit risky. So I get the bottle on top of Soldering Travels in just under 10 minutes and I'm level 9, pretty much. Now I want to talk about the tree cutting phase. In part 1 I showed you the tree cutting phase for the dire side, but I have just a small correction to that. When I did the replay for part 1, it was in the dying moments of the old Dota 2 before Reborn became mandatory. I just assumed Dota 2 and Dota 2 Reborn to be the same as long as it was the same patch, but I stand corrected because apparently there are some minor differences. The creeps are a bit more aggressive in Reborn, and also there's this one tree that's placed differently. I don't think there's any significance to it, I think they just placed this one tree in the wrong position by mistake. So it doesn't really change anything, but just for good measure, here's the tree cutting phase for the dire side in Dota Reborn. You should start off by cutting down the trees up here, just like I showed you in part 1. I like to leave these two big trees in the middle here because they're easy to cut down later while I'm stacking. Then when you hear the sound of the horn, you go down to cut down these 6 trees here. And now here in Reborn there are 4 trees on the high ground and 2 trees on the low ground you need to cut down, as opposed to the old Dota 2 where there was 3 trees on the high ground and 3 trees on the low ground. And also in Reborn what I do is I cut down this one tree here, because when I stand right in here then I'm absolutely sure I won't block the camp with my hero. But you could also stand over here, or you could stand by the rune if you're feeling brave. It doesn't matter that much, because I haven't been clear about this, but you don't really have to cut all the trees down before the creep spawn. You can't just cut down the last trees you're missing while you're jungling, it just takes some practice. On the Radiant side you want to start off by cutting down these 3 trees here. And then just to save time I'm cutting down this one tree here on the way. And then I cut down these 4 trees here. I don't have to cut down the 4th tree, but I have plenty of time, so I might as well. Then I cut down these 4 trees here, so I create a pathway so I can drag the creeps this way. And then finally I spend whatever time I have left to cut down trees in this area. So let's compare Tinker jungling on the Radiant side to Tinker jungling on the Dire side. In my opinion it's more fun to do this on Radiant because you constantly have to take into account the creeps you've been given and figure out what camps you have to focus, and if you can aim to clear both camps and still make it in time to stack the hard camp to the right. I think it's a bit easier to jungle on Radiant because there's more room for error, and it's kinda nice that you're cashing in your levels right away. You only have the one big stack as opposed to on the Dire side where you have the 2 big stacks. However, it needs to be said that you should really have a defensive ward when you do this on Radiant. You are kinda blind as to what's going on in your own jungle, so in some situation you're just a sitting duck for gankers. In real games I feel a bit safer doing this on the Dire side because I have a lot of vision around me, and usually I can just sense the gank coming and just back off with my early boots of speed. On the Radiant side the jungling is a bit messier, and what I mean by that is that you really have to control your hero perfectly, because if you click on the low ground then your hero will attempt to walk all the way around to get to the low ground, and that's really annoying. And also the attack range of Tinker is not that great. It's even worse than Necrophos, though this means that you will need to position yourself very close to the elevation and then right click the creeps. On the Dire side it's like you have this one technique, and if you do it by the book correctly then it's really fast. But if you want to get the insanely fast level timings then you have very little room for error. Sometimes when you get golems for example you just have to play flawlessly, because if you don't then you won't have time to stack the hard camp plus the medium camp. So bottom line on the Dire side is like you have this one technique you gotta learn. It's really difficult to learn, but when you get the hang of it you can get the super fast travels every time. On Radiant it's a bit easier, you have more room for error, but you might get frustrated by the trees respawning and your hero running in weird directions. So I think this Tinker jungling on the Radiant side will be easier for some of you, and for some of you it will be harder. But no matter if you do this on the Radiant side or the Dire side, it's really fast, like 8 to 10 minutes travels on average. I think it's a bit faster on Dire. On the Dire side there's this one technique, it's pretty straightforward. I'm sure I found the fastest way to jungle with these type of heroes that rely on stacking. If you're lucky you can reach your level 8 at 7 minutes flat, and it's just really solid. The high ground jungling here on the Radiant side however is still a bit of uncharted territory for me. I don't feel skill cap when I do this on Radiant, so maybe some of you guys can figure out a way to get an even faster travels here on the Radiant side. And if you cannot get the same fast boots of travel timings as me, then it's just all about practice. I mean, I've done this for like 3 years now, so I have a lot of practice. But if you do beat my timings, which I promise you is very possible, or if you do some other creative stuff in the jungle with an entirely different hero, or if you're using one of my jungle strategies in a real game, then send me the ID to bonelessdota@gmail.com, or write the ID as a comment to one of my videos. Or you can fraps it yourself and just send it to me. Then I'll make a video based on your replay and upload it here on my channel. If you want to know more about the items, the skills, the pros and cons of jungling a tinker and all that, I invite you to check out part 1 where I talk a lot more about this stuff. If you're having trouble with this high ground jungle technique on Dire side in Reborn, then you can check out my Tinker Speedrun where I explain to you in detail exactly how I do the jungling and how to deal with the new slightly more angry creeps in Dota Reborn. You can find me on Facebook, you can find me on Twitter, you can subscribe by clicking here. Thank you all so much for watching. See you in a few weeks for the next hero, which will be Lishrak, Beastmaster or Darkseer. I haven't decided yet. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you guys.